Let's just dive right into this explainer, okay? Here is a pretty profound realization to start us off. When we're sick, stressed, or just plain scared, our brains actually don't go looking for the truth. Nope, they go looking for calm. It's kind of crazy, right? We all love to think of ourselves as these deeply logical, totally rational creatures, perfectly capable of analyzing the data and making the absolute best choices. But, as we're going to see, the human mind is fundamentally wired to prioritize emotional equilibrium over objective reality. So, why exactly do we choose comfort over truth? Well, what's genuinely fascinating here is that this tendency to avoid hard facts isn't a sign of weakness, and it certainly isn't a sign of ignorance. Actually, it's a deeply ingrained survival mechanism. You see, when we want into something frightening or just completely unpredictable, a really old neurological sequence essentially takes the wheel. It absolutely demands meaning and control, even if it literally has to invent it out of thin air. Which brings us right to the root of what psychologists call magical thinking. And that's just the ancient human tendency to connect events that have absolutely zero causal relationship to one another. I mean, think about it. It's exactly why we might do something completely illogical, like throwing on a lucky bracelet to stay healthy during flu season, or obsessively knocking on wood so we don't jinx a good situation. We're essentially trying to negotiate with a totally chaotic universe. And we do this because we actually developed this trait way back in prehistoric times. Creating a simple cause and effect illusion was an absolutely crucial evolutionary survival tool. Imagine our early ancestors facing sudden, violent storms or unexplainable illnesses. Believing that some specific ritual could magically fix the problem, that was designed to reduce paralyzing anxiety. It gave us a much-needed sense of agency and encouraged us to actually take action, rather than just freezing up in pure terror. Section 1. The Trap of Analysis Paralysis. Let's look at how these ancient cognitive mechanisms build into something literally every single one of us faces today. While our brains evolved to handle the very real dangers of the prehistoric wild, they get totally overwhelmed by the modern world. You see, our primitive minds basically equate having options with having power and a higher chance of survival, right? But when we're faced with the endless, overwhelming choices of modern life, our prefrontal cortex basically just freezes. There's this famous supermarket study that just brilliantly illustrates this paradox of choice. So researchers set up a tasting table with 24 different kinds of jam. And yeah, sure, it attracted a ton of shoppers, but they became completely paralyzed by all the options. Then, the next day, researchers presented only 6 varieties of jam. And the result? Shoppers were actually 10 times more likely to buy a jar when they had fewer options. 10 times! I mean, you've definitely felt this paralysis yourself, right? Just imagine hopping on Amazon to buy some basic, simple white socks, only to be confronted with 387 different pairs. Instead of just making a quick, easy purchase, you literally lose an hour comparing seam placements and thread counts for absolutely no logical reason whatsoever. Your brain gets trapped in this endless loop, trying to perfectly optimize a choice that really doesn't matter all that much in the grand scheme of things. So the real kicker here is that we become so terrified of making the quote-unquote wrong choice that we end up making no choice at all. Take the story of one mother who spent weeks and weeks researching the absolutely perfect preschool for her kid. She's digging into safety records, curriculum, reading hundreds of parent reviews, but she took so long trying to optimize this decision that by the time she finally called her top 3 choices, every single school was completely full. In her search for perfection, she walked away with nothing. Section 2. Rewriting reconstructive memory. Okay, so our brains try to protect us from the overwhelming choices of the present, right? But what's truly mind-bending is that they also protect us by actively rewriting our history. We all tend to think of our memories as these perfectly preserved video files that we can just rewind and play back. But we really don't record the past perfectly at all. It's much more like a giant jigsaw puzzle. When we try to recall an event, we grab the puzzle pieces we do have, and we just sort of fill in the missing gaps with what our expectations tell us should have happened. Now, this whole gap-filling process has a name. It's called confabulation. And just to be super clear here, we're not doing this on purpose, and we're definitely not trying to lie. It's just that our brain absolutely hates having missing pieces. It cannot stand it. So to maintain some semblance of order, it seamlessly invents details to plug those holes based on our current needs, our biases, and our expectations. It basically paints over the blank spots so smoothly that we genuinely believe these completely invented memories are 100% real.
Get this. In a startling study from 2002, researchers showed people these fake advertisements for Disneyland that just so happened to feature Bugs Bunny. Fast forward a bit, and these people actually remembered meeting Bugs Bunny at Disneyland when they were kids. They vividly recalled shaking his hand and even touching his tail, which is, of course, completely impossible because Bugs Bunny is a Warner Brothers character. He has never, ever been at a Disney park. Their brains simply stitched that recent information into a past narrative just to make a cohesive, complete story. Crazy, right?
Section 3. Settling for good enough. So to survive this constant everyday barrage of complex choices and missing puzzle pieces, we essentially operate as cognitive misers. Because our mental energy is super limited, we regularly settle for good enough through a process known as satisficing. It's basically a mashup of satisfying and sufficing. And we do this because constantly searching for the absolute best, perfectly optimal solution in every single daily scenario, it's just way too exhausting for our brains to handle. The truth is, we live in a world built on mental shortcuts, heuristics, and these cozy, protective illusions, not because we're inherently lazy, but because reality is just incredibly overwhelming. Our deliberate, logical brain, what psychologists often call System 2, only has so much bandwidth. It's got extremely limited cognitive resources. So to completely bypass decision fatigue and actually keep us functioning, our brains have to rely on these fast, frugal, and yes, sometimes highly biased shortcuts. Section 4. Finding freedom in truth. So if we're literally hardwired for all this magical thinking and memory distortion and taking endless mental shortcuts, how on earth do we break out of this cycle? Well, the path to freedom really starts right here. It starts by actively acknowledging that while our brains are absolutely brilliant at offering us comfort, they don't always offer us the truth. When we're making a high-stakes decision, whether it's about our health, our careers, or our relationships, we have to deliberately hit pause. We have to check those emotional impulses and purposefully re-engage our logical reasoning. It's all about separating the warm, fuzzy feeling from the cold, hard facts. Ultimately, actually taking control means willingly setting aside those protective illusions. As the source material so perfectly puts it, sometimes the absolute most logical thing we can do is just admit that we're standing on a map we are still learning how to read. We just have to accept that we're working with incomplete information, and that is okay. So I want to leave you with a critical question to chew on today. The very next time you feel absolutely 100% certain about a memory or a really quick decision, are you actually seeing the truth, or is your brain simply handing you the comfort you crave?